Senator Carper, you're recognized for your questions.
Yeah, thanks very, very much. I mentioned I'm the last Vietnam veteran serving in the U.S. Senate, and kind of relates to my great affection and interest in the postal issues. We used to fly 12-hour missions. We fly them off the coast of Vietnam and Cambodia, and at the end of the missions, we come back, debrief, and my crew, 13-man crew, would oftentimes have dinner together, chow together at an outdoor cafe on the base where we're located. And they had Armed Forces radio piped in on the speakers so we could actually hear music from America. And one of the groups that was pretty big at the time was a British group, I think, called Led Zeppelin. I think they had a very successful album called The Song Remains the Same. I'm channeling that song as I sit here with the Postal Service. The song remains the same. Senator Peters and I have worked for years, along with members of our staff, along with you, to try to make sure that we have a Postal Service that's one that we can be proud of, that provides not just mail services for folks that are deployed around the world in our armed forces, to meet the services for our constituents and across the country. And one of the things that we do, every one of us in the Senate and the House as well, we all have constituent services operations, as you know, and we take a lot of pride in our constituent services operation. We actually send out a survey at the beginning of every month to constituents who contacted my offices in Delaware and ask them about the quality of the service they're getting from. It could be from the VA, it could be the Department of Transportation, it could be from in the Postal Service. And the Postal Service usually leads the hit parade in unhappiness that we measure from our constituents in terms of folks that are complying, reaching out to us by phone, by mail, by email, to say that the service is not what it should be. And we have worked on legislation to try to help, as you know, to try to stabilize the operation of the Postal Service and their finances. And we're still facing a situation where the quality of the service is evaluated by people who contact my office every month. The quality of service is not getting better, in many cases getting worse. And we find that we're losing money, maybe more than ever. That's not a good combination. And it's not all on the Postal Service. It's not all on the people who work there. It's not all on the commission. It's not all on us on this committee. But we've got to find a way to a better place for the people we serve, and frankly, for the people who work for the Postal Service. But with that having been said, could both of you, Ms. Fisher, Ms. Pauling, could you share your insights on strategies the Commission could adopt to generally improve the financial stability of the Postal Service? How do you envision pushing for innovation and improvements in efficiency within the current regulatory framework to help the Postal Service better serve its customers? Please, Ms. Fisher, would you go first?
I don't know that we could alone improve the financial viability of the Postal Service. You laid out what is a significant problem. Their volume continues to decline, both in the market-dominant and competitive area. Market-dominant volume has been decreasing steadily for several years, and this past year, at 9% decrease. It never rebounded fully from COVID. Competitive had been growing, but this past year it decreased by 2%. Despite the relief of a $57 billion liability that the PSRA accomplished, which many, I think, thought would be a big piece of solving the Postal Service's financial problems, they still have a tremendous amount of unfunded liabilities. A huge loan from the Federal Financing Bank, workers' compensation, and continued CSRS and FERS liabilities. We can assist them to a small degree through rate authority, but much of the rest depends upon the public's desire for their product. And as I just laid out, that's waning. At base, I wonder if it's time to potentially revisit the entire business model of the Postal Service. That's something the Commission made several recommendations to the Congress several years ago. It's a tough nut to crack. You need to try and discern what the public truly wants and needs from their Postal Service. A lot of different countries are looking at this right now. Some are considering days of delivery. Some are considering lowering service standards. I'm not saying that's the answer here. lowered service standards certainly doesn't seem to be what the American public wants, but these are things that it may be time to revisit.
Okay, thanks very much. And Ms. Poling, I just take about a minute and respond, and then well, I'm going to say one other thing and turn it back over to our chairman. Go ahead, just 1 minute, please.
Okay. Thank you, Senator Carper.
And I'll ask you to respond in greater length and responses for the record. Thanks. Go ahead.
Okay, that sounds good. Thank you so much. I'll just quickly say then, I think when it comes, you asked primarily about financial stability of the Postal Service.
Oh, yeah.
And I think the greatest way that the Commission can have an impact on that is probably through our rate-making authority. I mentioned earlier that we have opened our review of the rate-making system 2 years earlier. And I really do think, the goal of the system is really to find ways, right, to find this balance between keeping the Postal Service self-sustaining and also finding incentives to reduce cost. And so I think that's something we'll be able to examine in greater length as we go into this new rate-making review. I also think it's important to say that in our recent rate order that we put out, we actually did, put in there that we do believe the Board of Governors should exercise their discretion when they are raising these rates. And I do believe this system will give us a chance to really look at this in greater detail, but that is something that we have said. And again, I think one thing that is a real benefit of this enacted system from 2021, the one we're currently under, is that we do have the ability to revisit it every 5 years, if not earlier. So I think that's something we're doing right now. And the last thing I'll say is we do have a financial report at the Commission where we're really able to examine the revenue and costs of the Commission on an annual basis. Yeah. And I'll be happy to give you even more in my questions for the record.
Before I turn the gavel back over to our chairman, before he pulls it out of my hand, one of the things we've tried to do for years is find how are other, the Postal Service is the only entity in the country that goes to basically every door, every postal box in the country, at least 5-6 days a week. And how do we take that and make that part of the business model that's actually generates enough revenues to be sustaining? One of the things that we hear from time to time is vote by mail. And some states they have a fair amount of vote by mail. In other cases, not so much. I think I felt forever that there's actually revenues opportunities for the Postal Service through vote by mail. And frankly, hopefully at the same time we'll get more people to vote. And that would be a good combination. Vote by mail, increase revenues of the Postal Service, and make sure more people are reading the constitutional responsibilities as citizens. With that, we turn it to the chairman, and thank you so much for letting me sit in your seat for a while.
Well,
thanks.
Thank you, Senator Carper, as always. Senator Butler, you're recognized for your questions.
Thank you.